Hi everyone, we did our presentation on Brazil and the literature in Brazil. Some background on the children's literature and culture in Brazil. It developed in the 19th and early 20th century with a focus on civic pedagogical literature. It was mainly designed to educate and promote national identity. In the early 1930s, Monteiro Lobato he played a crucial role in building children's literature in Brazil. He was a well-known writer who prioritized books designed for children. This then sparked many more authors to write children's books in Brazil. To jump in our first book, we have Soccer Star by Mina Javaherbin, and illustrated by Renato Alarcao. And right here we have the cover of the book. Some biographical information. Mina Javaherbin was born in Iran and she emigrated to the United States. She has her education in architect, but she loves to write and record short films. Many of her books are inspired by exploring different cultures around the world, sports, and her childhood in Iran. And these are just some of her other books that I had added on My Father's House and Neymar, A Soccer Dream Come True. Renato Alarcao, he was born in Brazil. He is both an author and illustrator and has illustrated many books in both the US and in Brazil. And these are just some of his books that he has illustrated. The first one being The Penguin of Ilha Grande and Finding the Music. Now to jump into our book, Soccer Star by Mina Javaherbin. This book is about a Brazilian boy named Paulo who dreams to become a professional soccer player. We follow his journey of what life is like living in Brazil um, during poverty with both his mom and his little sister. His little sister also has an interest in playing soccer, but due to her being a girl, she isn't really allowed to play on the boys' team. At one of Paulo's soccer games, one of his teammates get injured, and he has to make a choice to decide if he should allow a girl to finally play on the team. My reflection of this book, I found this book to be very heartwarming. Paulo allowing his sister to play on the team really pulled my heartstrings as he made a decision to bow for change. Um, this is a good children's book because it does give children the motivation to make a change in the world to help them achieve their goals, just like Paulo decided to make a change of finally allowing a girl to play to help his team win. The idea of crossing borders, which connects to our theme in this course, Paulo is aspiring to achieve his dreams of becoming a soccer star. He wants to leave the world of poverty behind. In doing so, he has to cross the borders of allowing a girl to play soccer in order for his team to win. The border being crossed here is gender roles and allowing his sister to finally play on a team with all boys. And you can see here, I added some screenshots of the book. His sister did make the winning goal, so I think that was really cool to see a girl play a big part in helping his team get to victory.
Hello, my name is Jessica Franco, and the children's book I decided to focus on is Saudade, Our Longing for Brazil by Ana Crespo, illustrations by André Ciolin. Ana Crespo was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. She studied journalism there, and in 2000, she decided to move to the United States to pursue a master's degree in education. She was inspired to write books from her own personal experiences with picture books, given that she didn't really read much growing up, but picture books had a lasting impact on her. And when she became a mom, she enjoyed reading to her daughter so much that she decided to write her own. André Ciolin, he's a self-taught illustrator from Brazil. He actually started sketching around age 4. He became a young father, so he was constantly surrounded by children's books and decided to study at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. He illustrated his first book in 2009, titled Dia na Vida de Micaela. Saudade, Our Longing for Brazil, is about this Brazilian immigrant mother and her daughter who are on a hiking trip. And as they progress through their trip, they recall memories that they have of Brazil and their family members and experiences there, which demonstrate how much they long and yearn for Brazil. So, this feeling of homesick and just a strong longing. What makes it a good children's book? Saudade by Ana Crespo is a great book because it reflects the fact that children can experience a wide range of emotions just as adults do. For instance, in this frame right here, it says, when are we visiting Brazil again? I ask, and my mind knows I understand. So this demonstrates, the idea that children do understand complex emotions and, they're not single-minded. They understand and they can experience those same emotions as well. They understand them and feel them just as strongly as adults can. And additionally, the book allows for children of different backgrounds to resonate, with the storyline, given that they might have similar anxieties related to a new home. So it really helps them not feel alone and be reflected and represented through the book. The book also rejects misconceptions about children's books, such as the idea that illustrations should be simple. As we can see here, there are a lot of illustrations. They're very complex. For example, in this frame, you can really see how the little girl is feeling really sad, and so is the mom looking over at her, a little bit worried perhaps. And here we have a flashback or a little memory. So it's very complex because children have to understand that we're still in the present time, but also that this portion right here is not occurring at the same time as this, as the mom and daughter are hiking. So it's really complex, and the illustrations cover the whole page and can really blend in the background. It also contains very colorful and vibrant illustrations that indicate a joyful yet nostalgic mood. And this really plays on to the visual and verbal aspects of picture books. And given that the illustrations and the text in this book really work together to reinforce the ideas of longing and express really the mood and tone of the book. Saudade by Ana Crespo also reflects the crossing borders themes because of the fact that it provides insight into Brazilian culture through the exploration of saudade. And in fact, saudade is a word that isn't really capable of being translated into English, but yet the feeling and of longing is something that all readers can resonate with. And additionally, the book, because it features a Brazilian immigrant mother, many children of immigrant backgrounds can really relate to it and feel represented, feel that they are not alone in their feelings and experiences, especially in new environments. Additionally, the story really highlights the fact that children all over the world, all individuals, can have similar experiences, problems, and expectations, so we're not really all that different. It also disrupts the single story of a specific group of people, such as immigrants, as it allows, children to really feel empathy and recognize humanity behind these situations, rather than viewing them as other or being influenced by incomplete stories about them or stereotypes, as it provides insight into their experiences and feelings.
Okay. So for my book, I selected the book titled Sleep Here, Wake There by Caio Cero. So a little biographical information in regards to Caio Cero is he's an illustrator and a comic book artist from Brazil. His inspiration for this book was actually his own experiences that he encountered as a young child. And then I also tried to do a deeper dive on Caio Cerro and learn a little bit more about his other work or what inspired him to get into children's literature, but there wasn't really much information that I could find. The only other thing that I found was that he has written another book titled Rumi. So, a little summary about the book is so this is a children's book about a young boy named Caesar. So within this book, he kind of goes like on a little journey, um, out of curiosity on why every time that he goes to sleep in his bed, he wakes up the next morning at his aunt's house. So throughout the book, he's kind of trying to think of magical or interesting ways on how he's possibly ending up at his aunt's house. To the left, I included some pictures. So the very top picture is actually the cover to the book. So it's Cesar or Caesar laying in his bed. And then the bottom picture is an example of one of the pages in the book. And it's kind of the premise of what the book is about. Here he was thinking, oh, maybe there's a magical portal in my bed that's leading me to my aunt's house that I'm falling into every night. More examples are like in the next page, he's also saying that what if aliens abducted me and took me to my aunt's house? So this is kind of just an example of what the book kind of shows and discusses. So, a little evaluation of the text is I like this book and I specifically selected this book because it kind of shows us the way that children think and process questions that they may have. Um, I feel like as adults, we would try to find logical explanations for why we're waking up at a completely different location than when we're at, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it. But this book kind of shows us how a children's imagination can really run wild, and they will think of many different possible, like magical and like amazing things. So I think this job did a really good job at showing us how a child's imagination works. It's a good children's book because it makes a child interested with the images. So I really enjoyed the images or the examples it gave in the book. So as I had mentioned previously, one of the pages he's talking about, oh, maybe aliens abducted me, and it shows like a picture of a bunch of aliens. And I know this is definitely something that would interest a young reader to be seeing all these cool and magical things. I feel like it gives the book character. So if none of these creative images or scenes were in the book, it would be considered a boring story for children. Like I said, as adults, we don't really think as much of things. We try to be very logical about situations, but this book does a good job at at getting a young child's attention, but also telling an important story. So, for the theme, crossing borders and disrupting the single story. So, in the story, um, because Caesar was kind of wondering how he's ending up at his aunt's house, later on in the book, we end up finding out that it was actually his mother who was taking him to his aunt's house, and his mother is actually a single mom, and she would drop him off at his aunt's house so that she could be able to go to work. I think this story discusses the differences in social norms and the way that children may interpret them. I think a very real social norm that we hear about a lot is a child living at home with both mom and dad, being dropped off at school by them, and just having like that kind of westernized like way of thinking. I think this um book kind of shows us that actually there's different living situations, and it kind of shows us that it's, you know what, there's some parents that are single parents and they need to be able to provide for their child just as much as any a mother and father combination uh would be like in a normal per se household. So I feel like this book also discusses the hardships of being a single mother. So we can kind of infer that Caesar is being transferred to his aunt's house, probably in the middle of the night or super early in the morning because he's still asleep. So it kind of shows us that crossing crossing those borders of trying to figure out a way on how to provide for her son. And also for Caesar, where he has to then understand, hey, my mom is also a single mother, and this is why this is happening.
We're going to be talking about Lucas and the Caparia Circle. This is written by Joanna Pastro and illustrated by Douglas Lopez. Joanna Pastro was born in Brazil and she later moved to the United States. Her debut story was titled Lily Bell, a Damsel Not in Distress. She has a background as an architect and mentioned that after her first child is when she first gained interest in writing children's books, and it was 8 years later when she finally put out her first one. Today, she has 3 children, 2 dogs, and a husband. This is Douglas Lopez. He's a Black Brazilian illustrator. He mentioned that in his younger years, he got his influence from comic books and various animes he used to watch. He has a background in social communication, and down below are 3 of his portraits, which I feel show who he is as an artist. He uses very vibrant colors, lots of details, and the stills are just overall really captivating and tell stories within themselves. The story follows Lucas on the day of his promotion in the Brazilian drum-based martial art which he loves. It's a vibrant blend of dance, music, and aerobics. He begins the day confident and excited, but as the moment draws near, he feels as if he's losing his ginga. In the story, we learn that ginga is equivalent to confidence. With the support of those around him, he's reminded that no one can truly lose it, and that through the love and strength of our community, we can always find our rhythm again. In each of these stills, I feel like they really capture important moments of the story. In the first scene, we see Lucas showing his little sister a couple of his moves that he knows, and by the end of his sequence, she falls down and gets hurt. While her mother is consoling her, she tells her, "Oh, it's okay, you just lost your ginga." And Lucas is very concerned, saying, "Well, what do you mean she lost it? Like, is she gonna get it back?" And the mom explains that it never really leaves. And the next still, we see a moment when Lucas begins to lose his ginga, and just the illustration itself, you can see like the spotlight is on him. He's surrounded by sadness. The butterflies from his tummy are swarming him, and I think this is just a really dramatic part of the book. In the next scene, you see that his emotions are totally flipped. You can even tell just by the colors used on the page. Instead of, stressed, he seems more focused while he's tapping rhythms on his drum. After he regulates himself in the last still, we see him fully back to how he was, exerting as much as space as he can, and fully just having his ginga back. I feel like this book does connect our course's themes of crossing borders and disrupting the single story because it shows diversity within culture. Capoeira itself is a blend of African, indigenous, and Brazilian traditions. Capoeira is often stereotyped as a fight or a spectacle, and in this story, it's really shown as a celebration, not as a character. This story helps to portray positive outlets when undergoing stress, although his stress is stemming from, the Capoeira circle itself. He uses what he learned to also regulate back to what he wants to be. He was very disciplined. His community, both his family community and his Capoeira circle community, helped Lucas in his moments of stress. And this moment, there was also this moment of cultural legacy where the last straw he needed to regulate himself down to have the confidence was an excerpt of him thinking about something his grandfather told him, also about ginga, saying that, you never really lose it. I really like that this story depicted a young boy who is strong and confident, but also vulnerable and reflective. I feel like both in Latino and Black backgrounds, hypermasculinity is a really strong theme that's talked about a lot. It's very difficult for boys and men to be sensitive or emotional. They'll often get a bad rep saying that, that's not accepted behavior and you can only be strong. And this story really shows that boys can be both. I also appreciated that this story didn't depict adverse childhood experiences, although these stories are very true, and having recognition and representation is just as important. But in Western media, poverty, negligence, and violence of Brazilian culture is what's often portrayed. So having a story that's really just joyful, I think, is just as important.